You've felt it before, haven't you? That quiet distance creeping in between you and the person you love. It doesn't show up all at once. It sneaks in slowly, like silence filling a room. One day you realize it's been weeks since you really asked them how they're doing. Not just how was your day, but how are you really? And maybe when you think about asking, your stomach tightens. Because it feels awkward, forced, unnatural, like you're suddenly exposing something too vulnerable. But let me ask you this, why does checking in with the person you're closest to feel harder than talking to a stranger about the weather? Why can you scroll endlessly through your phone, type out long texts to a friend, pour your thoughts into social media, but freeze when it's time to look your partner in the eye and ask the simplest, most important question? The truth is, this is where so many relationships start to drift apart. Not in dramatic fights, not in betrayals, but in the everyday silences. In the absence of asking, listening, understanding. And here's the part no one tells you. The distance doesn't come because you don't love each other. It comes because neither of you knows how to cross that invisible line between we're fine and let's really talk. So here you are carrying questions you don't ask, feelings you don't share, and a longing for closeness that sometimes feels out of reach. And if you've been here long enough, you know the danger it builds. The more days go by without a check-in, the heavier the silence feels. Until one day you don't know how to break it anymore. But what if I told you this doesn't have to be your story? What if I told you that checking in with your partner doesn't have to feel awkward, forced, or artificial? What if it could become the most natural, grounding, and even beautiful part of your relationship? Imagine this, sitting down together asking one simple question, and feeling the air in the room shift. Walls breaking, hearts opening, connection flowing back in. Imagine your partner exhaling in relief because finally they feel seen. And imagine the look in their eyes when they realize you weren't just being polite, you genuinely care. That's what this conversation is about. It's about learning how to check in without the awkwardness. It's about rewiring the way you think about communication in your relation. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly how to take those small but powerful steps that bring you closer every single day. Now here's the first truth you need to understand. The awkwardness isn't coming from the question itself. It's coming from the fear underneath. You're afraid of what they might say. You're afraid they'll brush it off, or worse, that they'll open up and you won't know what to do with it. You're afraid of being too much, too vulnerable, too needy. So instead, you avoid, you wait for the right moment, which somehow never comes. And in the waiting, the distance grows. But think about this. Hasn't your partner at some point shown you that they want to be understood? Haven't they sighed a little heavier when they came home? Stayed quiet a little longer at dinner? Haven't there been moments when you could sense something was off, but you didn't ask because you didn't want to make it awkward? And didn't part of you regret it later? See, checking in is less about what you say and more about the message behind it. When you ask someone how they're really doing, you're not just looking for words. You're telling them, I notice you. I care about what's happening inside you. You don't have to carry it alone. That's the message. That's the lifeline. And sometimes, that's all it takes for someone to breathe again. But here's the challenge. Connection isn't convenient. You don't always get the perfect moment, with the candles lit and the mood calm. Sometimes you have to step into the middle of the mess, into the busy day, into the ordinary silence, and simply say, hey, I just want to check in with you. How are you really doing? And the more you practice it, the less awkward it becomes. Think about it like this. The first time you try anything new, it feels strange. The first time you speak up in a meeting, the first time you go to the gym, the first time you try a new skill, you feel clumsy. But after a while, it becomes part of you. The same is true here. If you keep waiting until you don't feel awkward, you'll wait forever. The only way through it is to practice, to lean into it, to make it normal. And let me tell you, when you do, everything changes. Because relationships don't fall apart when people stop loving each other. They fall apart when people stop checking in. When you stop being curious. When you stop asking the questions that make the other person feel known. And you don't have to let that happen. So right now, I want you to picture this moment. Your partner walks through the door after a long day, instead of the usual routine. Hey, how was work? Fine. You pause. You look at them, not just their face, but their eye. And you say, hey, before we get busy with everything else, I just want to check in. How are you doing today? Like really? Do you feel that shift? That's not awkward. That's intimacy. That's love showing up in action. And that's the kind of love that Now here's where most people get it wrong. They think checking in means sitting their partner down, like it's some kind of interrogation. You know the look, crossed arms, serious voice. We need to talk. No wonder it feels awkward. Who wouldn't tense up at that? But that's not what real check-ins are. They're not a spotlight, they're a soft lamp. They're not about putting someone on the defensive. They're about giving them space to exhale. The way you bring it up matters just as much as the words you use. And the truth is, your partner doesn't need a perfect speech. They just need to feel your presence. Think about the last time someone really listened to you, not waiting for their turn to respond, not cutting you off, not rushing you. They just let you speak, with their whole attention on you. Do you remember how grounding that felt? How safe? That's what you're offering your partner when you check in. And if you can give them that gift consistently, you will see your relationship transform. But let's be real, it's not always easy. Maybe you've tried before, and it ended in silence, or in a shrug, or in them saying I'm fine, when you could tell they weren't. And in that moment, you felt helpless. You wondered if it was even worth trying again. But here's the thing, sometimes, the first I'm fine is just a test. They want to know if you really want to hear, or if you'll give up the second it gets uncomfortable. This is where you lean in. You don't push, you don't pry, but you stay gentle and consistent. Something as simple as, I hear you, I'm here if you want to share more. That's it. You leave the door open, and when you do that, you show them something powerful. You show them that their inner world matters to you, even if they don't open it right away. That consistency builds trust. And trust is the soil where deeper conversations grow. Let's talk about the mindset you need before you even open your mouth. Because if you come into a check-in thinking, okay, I'll ask, but I better get a deep answer, you've already lost. This isn't about extracting information. It's about creating a rhythm of openness. Some days, your partner might pour out their heart. Other days, they might give you a sentence or two. Both are okay. What matters is the ritual, the habit, the signal that says, I see you every single day. Here's a simple shift that changes everything. Instead of thinking of check-ins as conversations, think of them as invitations. You're not demanding they share, you're inviting them to. You're saying, here's a space I made for you, if you want it. That space itself is healing, even when the words are few. Now let's get practical. How do you actually bring it up without making it weird? The secret is weaving it into the everyday moments. You don't need to dim the lights and sit face to face unless you want to. Sometimes the best check-ins happen in the car, while you're cooking dinner together, or while you're lying in beds, scrolling your phones. All it takes is noticing the moment and choosing to ask. Picture this, you're chopping vegetables side by side, and you glance over. Hey, before we get into everything else, how are you feeling about life these days? I don't mean the schedule or the work stuff. I mean you. You see how soft that feels. You're not demanding, you're not cornering, you're gently opening a door. And more often than not, they'll walk through it. Another example, you're both in the car, music playing, silence filling the space. You turn it down, just a little and say, hey, I just want to check in. How's your heart these days? Simple, disarming, safe. And if your partner hesitates, that's okay. Don't panic, don't push. Just stay open. Sometimes the timing isn't right, but the question lingers. Later that night, they might circle back with, earlier when you asked me, actually I've been feeling, and suddenly the door is wide open. But here's where you need to be careful. Checking in is not about fixing, It's not about solving every problem or jumping in with advice. If your partner says, "I've been feeling overwhelmed at work," don't immediately respond with, "You should talk to your boss," or "Maybe you need to switch jobs." Not yet. First, stay with their feelings. That sounds really heavy. I can imagine that's been a lot on you. Do you feel the difference? One shuts the door, the other keeps it wide open. Because here's the truth. Most of the time, people don't want answers. They want understanding. They want to know they're not carrying it alone. That's what checking in gives them, the relief of not being invisible. Now let's address the awkwardness again. Because no matter how much advice you get, the first few times you try this, it will feel strange. That's normal. But awkward isn't the enemy. Disconnection is. Awkward is just the doorway you walk through to get to something deeper. Think about the first time you said "I love you." Weren't you nervous? Didn't your heart race? But wasn't it worth it? That's what this is like. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. Over time, your partner will come to expect it, not in a pressured way, but in a comforting way. They'll know that even if the world is chaotic, even if life is overwhelming, there's one person who will always pause, always notice, always care. That becomes the anchor of your relationship. So, I want you to imagine this future. Weeks from now, months from now, you and your partner have built this habit. It doesn't feel forced anymore. It feels like second nature. You ask, they share. Sometimes a little, sometimes a lot. And in those moments, you both remember why you chose each other. You feel closer, safer, stronger. And when storms come, and they will, you don't face them in silence. You face them together. That's the power of checking in. It's not about perfect words or flawless timing. It's about showing up consistently with an open heart. It's about saying without saying, "I care about your inner world as much as I care about everything else we share." And that, more than anything else, keeps love alive. Here's the truth most people never say out loud. Sometimes the hardest part of checking in with your partner isn't asking the question, it's handling what comes after. Because when you invite someone to open up, you can't control what they'll bring to the table. And that can feel terrifying. Maybe they'll tell you something you didn't expect. Maybe they'll share a frustration with you. Maybe they'll open up about a fear or a dream that challenges your own comfort zone. And in those moments, it's easy to shut down, to get defensive, or to change the subject, because it feels too heavy. But hear me when I say this. If you only want to hear the easy answers, you don't really want connection. Real intimacy isn't built on "I'm fine" and surface level updates. It's built on the courage to hold space for the messy, complicated truth. That's what checking in really asks of you. Not just the willingness to ask, but the strength to stay when the answer isn't simple. Think about it. If your partner says, "I feel distant from you lately," your first instinct might be to panic, or to argue back. "What do you mean? I've been trying my best." But pause, breathe. Don't make it about defending yourself. Make it about understanding them. That's the shift that changes everything. You can say, "I didn't realize you felt that way. Can you tell me more?" Suddenly, instead of a fight, you've created a bridge. And yes, it's vulnerable. It's raw. But isn't that what you wanted in the first place? To feel closer, to really know each other. You can't have that without stepping into discomfort. Discomfort is the price of intimacy. Here's another truth. Sometimes your partner won't know how to answer at all. You'll ask, "How are you really doing?" And they'll shrug, "I don't know." And in that moment, you might feel like you failed. But you didn't. Because even giving them the space to say, "I don't know," is a check-in. It's a reminder that someone cares enough to ask. And trust me, later, when they do find the words, they'll remember who made room for them. Now let's talk about rhythm. Because checking in isn't a one-time thing. It's not a box you tick. It's something you build into the very fabric of your relationship. Think of it like watering a plant. You don't drench it once and expect it to stay alive forever. You water it regularly, consistently, even when it doesn't look thirsty. That's how it thrives. So what does rhythm look like in real life? Maybe it's a 5-minute check-in every evening before bed. Maybe it's a longer conversation once a week, where you ask each other deeper questions. Maybe it's just staying attuned to the little signals, a sigh, a quiet mood, a faraway look, and gently asking in the moment. The point isn't the schedule. The point is the consistency. And don't underestimate the small check-ins. They matter. Sometimes a simple "how's your heart today" can carry more weight than a long drawn-out talk. Because it's not about the length of the conversation, it's about the intention behind it. It's about proving, over and over again, I see you, I choose you, I want to know you every single day. But let's get real again. Sometimes, no matter how well you check in, you'll hit walls. Misunderstandings will happen. Your partner might misinterpret your questions as criticism. You might feel hurt if they don't open up as much as you hoped. That's normal. That doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're two humans trying to figure out how to love each other better. And love, real love, is a lifelong practice. The key is to not give up when it feels messy. If they misunderstand you, clarify gently. I'm not asking because I think something's wrong. I'm asking because I care. If they don't open up much, don't pressure. Just keep the door open. If emotions rise, remind yourselves you're on the same team. Every check-in is a chance to grow, not just in closeness, but in patience, empathy, and resilience. And here's the beautiful part: when you stick with it, when you keep showing up with honesty and tenderness, something shifts. The awkwardness fades, the misunderstandings soften, the walls come down. And one day, you'll notice something amazing. Your partner begins to check in with you. They'll start asking the questions back. They'll notice your sighs, your silences, your moods, because love is contagious like that. When you model presence, it inspires presence. Imagine this future. You've had a hard day, the kind that leaves you drained and quiet. You don't even realize how heavy you've been carrying it until your partner looks at you and says, "Hey, you seem a little off. Want to talk about it?" In that moment, you feel seen, you feel cared for, and you realize the check-ins you started didn't just help them. They built a culture of connection that now holds both of you. That's the gift of this practice. It's not just about avoiding awkward silences. It's about building a foundation where both of you can be fully human, messy, tired, joyful, afraid, hopeful, and still fully loved. It's about creating a relationship where "how are you" is never just small talk, but an invitation into each other's hearts. So yes, it might feel strange at first. Yes, it might stir up things you didn't expect. Yes, it might even feel clumsy along the way. But think about the alternative. Think about what happens when couples don't check in. Distance grows, misunderstandings harden. One day you wake up next to someone you no longer know. And that's a pain far worse than a little awkwardness. So choose the awkwardness, choose the courage, choose the small, consistent moments of connection that keep love alive. Because in the end, it's not the grand gestures that hold a relationship together. It's the daily choice to show up, to ask, to listen, and to love. And maybe when you ask that question tonight, "How are you really doing?" you'll see it happen. The softening, the trust, the connection flowing back in, and you'll realize it was never about avoiding awkwardness. It was about finding the kind of closeness that awkwardness was guarding all along. Take a moment and breathe, really breathe, because everything we've been talking about, every moment of awkwardness, every check-in, every risk of asking and listening, it all comes down to one truth. You want love that lasts. You don't just want a partner to share bills or routines with. You want a connection that feels alive, safe, and real. And here's the secret. Love doesn't last because two people never fight, or because they always agree. Love lasts because two people choose over and over again to turn toward each other instead of away. Checking in is one of the most practical, powerful ways of making that choice. Think about it. Every day life pulls you in 1,000 directions. Work, deadlines, stress, screens, responsibilities. And in the middle of all that noise, it's so easy to forget the one person standing beside you. Not forget them in the sense of not knowing they're there, You see them every day, but forget them in the deeper sense. Forget their inner world, their quiet struggles, their hidden dreams. Checking in cuts through the noise. It says, I haven't forgotten you. You still matter to me more than all the chaos out there. I want to know how you're doing on the inside, not just what's happening on the outside. And when you do that, you remind both of you why you chose each other in the first place. Now let's get really on. Relationships aren't fragile because people stop loving each other. They're fragile because people stop paying attention. They stop noticing the sighs, the pauses, the unsaid words. They get comfortable with "we're fine" and forget that fine isn't the same as connect. That's how couples drift slowly, silently, until the gap feels too wide to close. But you're here listening to this because you don't want that to be your story. You want something stronger. You want something real. And the truth is, you already have what it takes. Checking in doesn't require money or grand gestures or endless hours. It only requires presence. A willingness to look someone you love in the eye and say, I'm here, tell me where you are. That's it. That's the work. That's the beauty. And yes, there will be days when it feels clumsy. There will be days when your partner doesn't open up. There will be days when you're tired, distracted, or even annoyed, and you won't feel like asking. But those are the days when it matters most. Because checking in isn't just about hearing good news. It's about staying close, even when life feels ordinary or hard. Think of it like this. Love isn't measured in the grand I love yous shouted from rooftops. It's measured in the quiet, consistent I see yous whispered in daily life. That's what a check-in really is. Another way of saying, I see you. I haven't forgotten you. You're still the most important person in my world. And over time, those moments add up. They build a story of resilience, of intimacy, of trust. They create a foundation so strong that even when storms come, you don't crumble, because you've practiced turning toward each other, not away. You've built a rhythm of presence that carries you through. So tonight, when you're sitting with your partner, whether it's over dinner, in the car, or lying in bed, try it. Just one simple question. How are you really doing? Don't script it. Don't overthink it. Just ask. And then listen. Really listen. Let them know they're safe with you. Let them know their truth won't scare you away. That's how you turn awkward into intimate. That's how you turn silence into connection. That's how you turn an ordinary night into a moment you'll both remember. And here's the part I don't want you to miss. This isn't just about your partner. It's about you too. When you make space for someone else's heart, you teach them how to make space for yours. When you show up with curiosity, you invite them to do the same. That's how relationships evolve. Through mutual presence, mutual care, mutual love. So maybe one day soon you'll come home, tired, carrying more than you realize. You'll drop your bag, sit down quietly, and before you can even say a word, your partner will look at you and ask, hey, how are you really doing? And in that moment, you'll feel what you've been giving all along, the gift of being seen. That's the circle. That's the reward. That's the love you've been building, one check-in at a time. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until the awkwardness disappears. Don't wait until things are falling apart. Start now. Start small. Start tonight. Because every time you check in, you're not just asking a question. You're writing the story of a love that listens, a love that loves. And maybe, just maybe, years from now, you'll look back and realize the closeness you share, the trust you built, the intimacy that carried you through. None of it happened by accident. It happened because you cared enough to ask. It happened because you turned toward, instead of away. It happened because you dared to check in, even when it felt awkward. That's how love survives. That's how love thrives. That's how love thrives.